Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show for April 17th, 20 Brine. And you may have noticed I did not say 20 Grind. It's because the bulk of releases are out. It was a busy first quarter of the year. But now we got to soak in all these releases and just let them wash over us and let them sink into our skin until we are completely one with these games and understand them completely. At least until the next busy release season in November, I think. But with me to Brine today is Tim Clark, brand director of PC Gamer. How you doing, Tim?
Excited to be back, James.
Glad to
Thought
have
maybe I'd been banned, but seems not.
You're always welcome. But Tim will be talking. Well, guess what? Tim will be talking about with us today. Can you take it? Wes, do you know?
I mean, there's
wager?
there's two possible avenues to go here.
It could be 4X games, or it could be
it?
MMOs. No.
Tim's here to talk about Sins of a Solar Empire. I'm gonna guess some Hearthstone. We got that new expansion just out.
Tim's talking Rise
I hear
of Shadows.
It's pretty good. Here it's pretty good.
That's good to know. Happy to hear it. If Tim is happy, I'm happy. Wes Fenlon, features editor's here with us as well.
Yeah.
And
I did not know I was signing up to sit in a stew with you, James.
I'm just telling.
Wasn't quite
It's
prepared.
gonna be tasty. All of our original thoughts and all of these amazing games that came out. It was a really nice couple of months. We got like 4 or 5 90s, I think, in our reviews. I'm just totally ballparking there, but I know we had
Resident Evil and Devil May Cry from Capcom.
Yeah, Baba Is You, Sekiro, Apex Legends. So yeah, it was not. it was a great
Division 2.
Division 2. Damn, it's a great year. Great year so far. Wes, what the hell are you talking about today?
A little bit of Star Wars, maybe.
A little Star Wars.
Star Wars.
It was the celebration weekend in Chicago, so we got the trailer for what's it called? Rise of Skywalker, the final in this latest trilogy.
Yes, is that the new movie title?
I think so.
Do you want to hear something sad about the movie before we get to the game?
Okay, sure.
Yes.
When the trailer broke at the weekend, my initial reaction was, "What the fuck? There's another one." I genuinely thought, like, if you'd have asked me, I thought that last one was the end. Like, what happens to Luke happens to Luke. Like, obviously, when you think about it, no, there was threads clearly left unpulled and resolved. But in my mind, it was finished, and I was like, "Really?"
That's it.
I would have been honestly. That would have been all right. It wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it seemed like a fine ending.
Yeah.
Well, too bad.
That new trailer didn't do a lot for me, honestly, as a big Star Wars nerd. But I think the movie will be pretty good. We'll see.
Who's directing this one? Is it J.J. Abrams?
JJ's back.
He's back, baby.
Isn't there some people are saying they want or don't want him to retcon Rey's "I'm just a regular farm girl" backstory?
Lots of people saying both, I'm sure.
Yep. It's gonna be. Uh-oh, we lost Tim.
We lost Tim.
Tim will come back.
He'll be back.
But that's not the reveal we're going to be talking about today from Star Wars Celebration. We're going to be talking about Star Wars. Okay, so Star Wars Jedi : Fallen Order?
Fallen Order.
Or is it a Fallen Order? It's
Fallen
just
Order.
Fallen
You
Order.
got it.
Gotcha.
You got the colon in the right place and everything.
Oh, perfect. This is Respawn. And if Respawn, Apex Legends, Titanfall developer, it's their single player story-based Star Wars game set after Episode 3, I think. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
So they showed off a trailer and kind of spoke kind of vaguely. What a nightmare panel that was, but spoke pretty vaguely about what it will be. So we'll be talking about that and some other stories that sort of came out of that weekend and the news that came with it. And I'll be talking to you all, or I guess preaching and maybe bothering.
Talking at us a little bit.
Talking at you about Fortnite. I'm doing it again, everybody. I'm going to talk about Fortnite. It's a good time for Fortnite. It's an interesting time for Fortnite, whether you play or not, because this is the summer of the World Cup, the very first Fortnite World Cup, and Epic Games has invested $100 million in prize money. in total. So it's not like first place is getting 100 million bucks. But in total, for 4 weeks of qualifiers, some sort of supporting events, and then the final shindig in which everyone's going
Which
to walk
country
away.
is the favorite, James?
Which country is the favorite right now?
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to say. We're only into week 1 of the qualifiers for solo play, and it's anybody's game right now. It's just it's way too early to tell. I have some favorites, but you're seeing.
Well, shouldn't America be the best? It's a country of 300 million people, and presumably where a lot of the Fortnite audience is.
I think so. That's what I'm going to guess. And that's
Is that what you wanted to say, but you didn't want to seem like
I mean,
an
it's
asshole?
week 1 of qualifiers, and it didn't go down as I predicted really. But then again, I haven't been.
I'm going to say it will be a
grinding.
national disgrace if America doesn't win, bringing shame on your once great nation.
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, quite honestly, because it's a lot of interesting players coming out of the woodwork because these qualifiers are held in the client. It's remotely, so you're not going to a local LAN to try out. You can play and try out from your desk.
So what's the format of the matches used for the World Cup qualifiers?
It's gosh, I can't remember exactly the time limit, or you have a game limit. You have a set amount of games you can play while the tournament is live. So you just go into the client and you click I think it's just the Fortnite World Cup qualifiers, and it'll queue you up with other people trying to qualify, and you'll get points based on your performance related to kills and placement and survival. And after you complete all your games, it'll tally up all your points, match them against everyone else, and the top 6, I believe, move on to the actual cup. So
Wait, so it's open to the whole community?
everyone can try. I can try right now.
Are you trying?
No, fuck no. Maybe I should, but yeah. It's $1 million each week just in qualifiers too. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty wild. A lot to break down there, especially the changes Epic was making to the game in the lead up has left a lot of pros pretty sour on the game as a whole.
Didn't you just post a story about them finding a new thing under Loot Lake?
Yeah. So
I just read that.
Meanwhile, the narrative keeps on ticking, and Epic keeps up the pace of updates that they've kept up for over a year now. It's pretty wild when you think about it. There's going to be a new in-game event soon, and a big vault was unearthed under Loot Lake, and that's exactly where the cube was laid to rest. So people are suspecting that the cube is going to make a comeback, which I'm all for because I like the big dumb MacGuffin rather than last season's volcano and the season before that like an ice castle. A little boring. Just give me a big mystery. But before we get
just
to
imagine if the Curiosity Cube had been as interesting as Fortnite's
Fortnite
year
Cube.
of just strange stories.
Did any of you play Curiosity?
Hell no.
No, you didn't try it out.
Yeah, I did. I played quite a bit of it.
I did too. If you don't know, listeners, this was what Peter Molyneux's experimental.
All you did was tap, right?
Portable
Wasn't that
game.
the whole game.
It was a giant MacGuffin, yeah. So it was a massive cube, and it was the same cube for everyone on there, shared across the world. And the whole goal was everyone would tap on pieces of the cube to break them away, and it would collate all this data and break away the cube in somewhat real time with the rest of the world. And there was some secret at the center, some prize. And what was the prize exactly?
The prize. The prize was to be the god of their next game, right?
Godus
which
or
was
Goddess or
that.
something?
Yeah, Goddess.
Yeah.
Which was won by a person who then, I think, as exposed by Eurogamer, the guy who did it got almost none of what the actual prize was, and then kind of ended up really sad and kind of in this running battle with Molyneux Studio.
Oh my God.
I don't want to out myself as a credulous peasant, but I feel like I've been gulled by multiple Molyneux projects. I mean, like a lot of us have. I remember reading about Fable, which was, I think, one of the less scammy games that they put out. But I remember reading the initial preview, probably an Edge, and then kind of going, yeah, you'll grow up, and if you cut down a tree, when you come back, it'll still be a stump, and you'll, know, if you kind of scab your knee, the skull will be there when you're older, and you just really go, oh, that sounds amazing. And think about the technology that game was being produced on. Even the notion that was going to be a thing is absolutely preposterous. Yeah.
Next gen fever every time. Just totally knocks people over.
I imagine he's working on a pretty exciting PS5 project right now, put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, maybe we can touch on that in a bit too. But let's
Yeah, I
let's
hear ray tracing's a thing now. Apparently,
ray tracing is a thing.
new technology.
Let's just briefly break that down. So was it yesterday? Sony sort of let loose the initial hardware specs, vague hardware specs related to the PlayStation 5, and I think I don't know. I didn't read the article itself. I was too busy. But the impression I got from everyone talking about it was that it was a little too optimistic about the capability and price of some of the hardware listed or detailed in the spec, including a ray tracing capable GPU listed at like a $10,000 value. Uh,
They
Well,
were
no,
just
they was.
yeah,
Go ahead,
they
boys.
just compared it to like, oh, previously to this, recent generation
okay.
of hardware, you could only do ray tracing on like $10,000 Hollywood,
Yeah,
supercomputer hardware, which is like really not
yeah.
a good comparison.
People
Slightly
with
different use
like
cases.
RTX cards were like, "Dude, I'm doing it in Metro right now.
Yeah, it looks great in Metro.
It doesn't
Plus,
cost 10 grand."
Hollywood's ray tracing is baked, so it's like rendered, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's not like
yeah.
Sony's always had. I say
Anyway.
this as someone who worked on a Sony magazine for some time, but
Yeah.
they've always had like a little bit of creative license when it came to claims around their new machines. I remember interviewing Phil Harrison at circa whenever the PlayStation was that released a controller that didn't have haptic feedback, didn't have rumble. And I went into the interview with Harrison after it had been announced. I was like, people really like rumble. Isn't that going to be a problem? And he was like, he said, like, with a straight face, I say as well, because God bless Phil, really can deliver bullshit without blinking. He just went, that's a last generation feature. And I was like, is it? But is it? Yeah. And then, like, sure enough, like a year later, we're delighted to bring back, now that some legal issues have been resolved, rumble.
Good God.
That's a next generation mouse feature. We got mouse and keyboard rumble. It's going to show up one of these days, right?
But anyway,
I remember floating the idea of a mouse at Rumble to Wes, and he was nearly sick in his mouth.
I mean, ew.
Not to tell me no.
Imagine the aim. Imagine the aim with that keyboard, though. Let's rumble those keys. Let's do it.
Clickety clackety.
Look, I've got early onset arthritis enough without the keyboard moving.
Yeah, PlayStation 5 is happening. It's just always interesting. We have this big article if you want to go. Like we won't talk about it much longer, but I'll link to the article, sort of breaking down what's in there. Jared breaking down what's in there and how it compares to PCs and whether. Sorry, what's that?
I mean, I guess the one like talking semi-seriously for a moment, the one assuming this is something that's going to come out like next year or whatever, that I guess if it moves up the baseline in terms of technical performance for kind of multi-format games, then PC owners will probably benefit.
Yeah, I think we definitely do benefit. It's always nice when the ceiling is raised. I get excited just so I know we're going to get some slightly better looking games on the PC.
I mean, it's pretty much going to be a PC in a either curved or like trapezoidal box, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's AMD hardware, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. I love.
And those chips are less bespoke than they used to be, because it used to be they would put in what was the engine that Sony made? It was just almost impossible.
The Emotion engine.
Emotion engine,
for the PS2, and then Cell on the PS3.
Yeah, and like no one could get their head around how to program for it.
Like
the Emotion engine is a good name. It's pretty good.
It sounds like the kind of thing that Don Draper would have pitched in Mad Men. He'd just gone, we call it the Emotion engine. Then just lights a cigarette.
Walks on it. Beautiful. PlayStation 5 coming soon. Let's talk about our highlights of the week. And our highlights of the week are anything that stood out to us in what we played or read about in the world of personal computer gaming. So why don't we start with Wes? What's been your highlight this last week?
Be happy to start.
Let's do it.
As I wrote in our show notes here, I am a mayonnaise making machine now.
I'm gonna need some context real quick.
So I've been playing Stardew Valley finally for the first time. When that game, before it came out, I was following the blog for it, and I was like, oh, I'm really looking forward to playing this. Never really gotten into a Harvest Moon. This one's on PC. This seems like the game for me. And throughout the entire development, they were talking about having co-op in the thing, so you could have a farm with your friends. And to get the game out, they decided, or he decided, the developer Eric Barone decided, like, I'm gonna delay that, do it later. It's going to be a lot of work. Let's just get the game out. And then it took like 2 more years for them to get co-op out. And they finally did that last year, and I've been playing it with a few of my friends. We got a whole farm set up together, and we're now like about a year into our farm, and we've gotten to that point where we have money now. Like at first we're just really poor in our farms. Like we have like a little corner of crops planted and, you know, we're making a little money from them. And now like the money's rolling in, we're selling artisan goods. Like I'm making mayonnaise with a mayonnaise machine, turning my chicken's eggs into mayonnaise. And we got a lot of fishing going on and a lot of mining and just selling stuff and making money, upgrading our tools. And
the Fenland farmstead sounds so like wholesome. Like most farms, especially like group farms, I assume like you spend a couple of nice days there, then you're kind of indoctrinated into the sex cult or like burnt in a wicker man or something. But Fenland's like seems like that might not happen to you.
Well, we named it Blood Gulch, so take that
okay.
as you will. But yeah, I'd say it's fairly wholesome. We're good at sharing. We're good at sharing responsibilities and taking care of our crops and our animals. So it seems it's a pretty friendly place.
You have to trade the sex for mayonnaise. That's the key thing.
or combine them. I mean, I feel like there's a good potential there.
Wow. Oh my God.
Wow. One of my friends is playing. So like you can do a little create a character, like change your hair and, you know, shirt and whatnot. And he like clicked the button. I don't even know if he clicked randomize or if it just the first random character it gave him was just like a perfect Bob Ross. So he's playing as he named his character Bob Ross, and that is his character. It's it makes me laugh every time he walks by.
Do you guys ever get like mad with each other that someone's like goofing off on the farm and not doing enough of the kind of chores?
That could happen, but I don't think it has yet. Because we were definitely in that phase of like we have no money and we want to, you know, do as well as we can to like get the resources to upgrade our equipment and stuff. But there might be a point at which somebody just sells all the crops and then just fucks off and does whatever they want or something, and the rest of us is like, come on, you got to help replant. So we'll see what happens. We've got a couple other people who pop in and out less frequently, so there's definitely some potential for shenanigans as we move forward. But in the meantime, a lot of mayonnaise.
Have you come up with a brand name for your mayo?
I have not done that, but now I need to.
Fenland's
you
finest.
Definitely need to.
Fenland's finest.
Oh, Fenland's finest.
That's not bad.
Beautiful. I'm really happy you're making egg stuff. So that's the power of PC gaming for you. What about you, Tim? What's your highlight? What you been doing?
I've been playing to the surprise of no one, the springtime Destiny event, which is called the Revelry. It actually lasts for 4 weeks. So it means like the tower is covered in like lovely spring flora and fauna, and there's kind of, it's all sunny and there's birds and stuff. And there's they've redone the haunted forest to now be the springtime forest. It's kind of like a wave-based mode where you have to kind of clear wave after wave and then do a kind of boss rush thing at the end. And you have to grind that out and do a bunch of triumphs, and then you can get this new exotic weapon called the Arbalest you wrote about yesterday, James. Yeah. It's like a linear fusion rifle, so it's kind of like a kind of railgun that fires slug rounds that you put in your kinetic slot, which is your primary. It's actually not very good, the gun.
I was gonna ask.
I played like from pretty much when I knocked off work at like 5 o'clock through till like late last night to get it with the guys I play with, and we all got it, and it was fun playing with them. But the gun is kind of so-so. It's not trash, but it's also like it's a really weirdly niche weapon. Like it's hard to know why you would use it, because it takes up your exotic slot. Why you'd use it over one of the big kind of meta power weapons. But that's not, playing it is not my highlight. Well, it is my highlight. The most fun we had was part of the grind. You had one of the triumphs is you had to generate lots of orbs of light for getting kills and stuff in the Gambit Prime mode, or Gambit. And so we went in there queued in as a 4-stack team, and we matched up just towards the end of our play session with one of the kind of quite well-known Destiny streamers called Professor Broman, and we absolutely bodied his team, which was really exciting because like we were really phoning it in until that point, and then as soon as like one of our guys noticed it was someone we'd heard of, like everyone like stepped up. We have the guy who was doing invading on our team is a guy called Psycho Llama, and he's really good. He's like a kid in Australia who doesn't sleep. He just plays on like North American hours with us, and has basically ruined his life. But he's very good at shooting people, and he was invading them, and they twice whiffed. The guy who's streaming twice whiffed on like the Thunder Crash move, where you do this kind of like Superman smash thing, and he landed like 1 meter away from Psycho, and then Psycho machine gunned him in the face. I'm 40 years old, James, but this was a great moment for me this week. We all watched the stream back and laughed when they were calling Psycho an asshole.
Beautiful. Hey man, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
All your
internet
work
gaming
and time in Destiny's paying off. Taking
well spent.
Taking down the icons and the stars. Right on. Yeah, I hopped into it yesterday to whip up that gun guide, and it's really it's a fun. I think I like the cadence. Like as many complaints as inevitably players are going to have about these live games, I'm really enjoying the cadence with which they're putting stuff out, and like substantial things too. Even if it is like a sort of like a reskin of that haunted forest mode, it's still fun and it still excites me. I have something new to do, some new way to get.
I think it's not perfect, the annual pass model they've got, and I think they would admit that as well. But at least it means there's something to do on a fairly regular basis. Whereas before, that game had like huge periods where there was no change at all. Whether that gets them through another year until they get to like D3 or not, I'm less certain, but kind of interested to see.
Is the plan, or I don't know what's confirmed and what's not, is the plan another big ish?
I mean, no one knows the plan. So at the moment, what's on the roadmap is that there's one more of these annual pass drops which hits I think in June, called Penumbra, which has a raid with it, so that should be good. It's kind of themed, looks like it's going to be themed around returning to the Leviathan spaceship, so that it should be great for lore as well. And then after that, they've always had a release in September, but that was when they were being financed and run by Activision.
Right.
They usually do a kind of like, that was when Forsaken came in September, and they had Rise of Iron previously to that. So like no one quite knows what's going to fill that gap. My suspicion, and I think a lot of the community suspicion, is they will roll out another annual pass, but maybe with a bigger drop there to start it. But I think they really need to create like another planetary destination at the least, so that there's just somewhere new to explore. One funny thing before we move off this, I'll say, is that so the mechanic of the way the Revelry event works is you can drink these tonics. You get the tonics from the vendor, and you can buy more of them as you kind of earn the currency from just doing any activity. And they give you like a massive cooldown either to your melee ability or your grenade ability or to your class ability. But these buffs work like globally in the game, so they even work in PvP, and they even work in the competitive PvP ladder. So people have like the few people who play that mode because it's really sweaty.
That seems bad.
They've gone absolutely crazy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's some actually some really cool rewards locked behind that ladder, which I don't want to reveal how I acquired this season. Maybe for another show, James.
Okay.
Tim, I like how you called my farm a cult, and yet you're playing in an event called The Revelry with a guy who doesn't sleep so that he can play.
Yeah. It is actually more Wicker Man, that vibe, actually, thinking about it. But yeah, I'm definitely enjoying the tiers of the competitive players, drinking them right down.
Love it. Right on. I'll just go over my highlights real quick. I got two quick ones. I hopped back into Assassin's Creed Odyssey because I thought I beat it. Apparently, I wasn't even close. I did like one ending. There's like it branches
like a Return of the King situation where it just keeps ending over and over again.
Kinda like there are like sort of three different branches in that game, like narrative branches. One is like wacky sci-fi fantasy shit. One is just the family story at the center of your sister and your brother and your mother, and sort of reuniting the family and how that plays out amidst the Spartan Athenian conflict. And then there's just like taking out the entire cult and the big boss, who I still don't know who that is. So I quit playing when I beat the sci-fi ending, which was fun. But then I hopped back in to check out some of the DLC that's come to the game in the months since, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't finish this, and hopped right back into it, and like 20 hours melted away. That game is incredible.
Has it got any of the weird DLC? Like I think it was the one before the Egyptian one that had that Final Fantasy crossover that made no sense.
Nothing that bizarre, nothing that jarring. That stuff is like sort of more naturally. There is some of that wacky shit, but it's more naturally. It is naturally introduced into the story. It's mythological figures coming to life, fighting.
They should do like an American mythological figure DLC pack where it's just like fucking what's his name, Paul Bunyan and his bull, and Wild Bill Hickok, and
hell yeah,
and who was the guy who hit the train spikes real good?
Oh shit,
Sledgehammer.
What was that movie, Tall Tales? Back when
John Henry hit the trail spikes.
Yeah, there we go. Why do you know this?
Because there's a
better than me.
Because there's a Songs I Hire song where Jason Molina sings about John Henry Swing Your Hammer Down. It's a great song.
Actually, it's a good tall tale.
So I've been hopping back to that. It's been a lot of fun, and the other highlight is playing and writing about Netflix's latest interactive series, You versus Wild, starring Bear Grylls. And if you don't know who Bear Grylls is, you might remember, just do a quick Google search, but Man versus Wild, it was probably like 10 years ago at this point when he was really sort of big. And his Netflix series introduces choices into the mix. So when Bear is faced with climbing across a ravine, you can take the old trolley that's there, but it was installed by the natives, or you can rappel down and try and go around. Most options usually put Bear in some kind of distress. What satisfies me the most about it is that these aren't real survival scenarios, but Bear is often in these scenarios like acting them out in a real setting. So one example is you have to cross a frozen lake, and it's a real frozen lake. They're out in the wilderness doing this, and he's like, "All right, should we run across it because we need to save time, or should we crawl because it's safer and we can distribute our weight better that way?" And I'm like, "Well, fuck, no, run. That's gonna be like, can you die? Can you die, Bear?" And so I say, "Run across it," and he takes a couple steps and just falls into the lake. He falls through the ice, and so it's just there's a weird pleasure I have knowing that most people are gonna be. I have nothing against this guy. I don't know much about him, but you just know everyone's going to torture this guy, and that's like the real joy you can draw from this otherwise really hokey, simple series.
It reminds me of when I was at, this is a slightly long anecdote, not about games. Enjoy. When I was at primary school, we had like a movie Wednesdays thing where I guess so they didn't have to teach us. They would just show us like an educational film, and then sometimes they would show us like King Solomon's Mines and stuff that weren't educational at all.
Oh, I love King Solomon's Mines.
Yeah, it's pretty good. One of them was like a Safety on the Farm film, because they were often like these government films. And in Safety on the Farm, this like group of like 7 or 8 kids goes to the farm and is one by one killed in accidents. And you see them like quite graphically. Like one kid like falls into like the grain sorting machine. You just see his like hand going into the grain. Another one like reaches up and touches like a bare wire and is electrified. And another kid is like balancing on poles, slips and brains himself on one of the other poles. God. And you honestly see like a hunk of like head matter, like glooped onto the pole. We were like about like 7 or 8 years old when we were. Also, none of us lived anywhere near a farm. We lived in South London. Like we weren't going on any fucking farms. Yeah, between that and the time they showed us Watership Down, I was absolutely traumatized.
Damn, you make a lot more sense now.
Man, yeah, the most traumatic like school experience like that I ever had was in preschool. So I'm like 4 years old. They decided to show us Steven Spielberg's Hook.
Okay.
Which is not like a super graphic or super violent movie, but it's kind of weird. It's kind of twisted, and a dude gets eaten alive by scorpions or stung alive by scorpions in the first 20 minutes of that movie. I was not ready for that at 4 years old. I gotta say, like, it was not a good nap time after that.
And I think that kind of thing probably won't happen to the same degree with this series. It feels aimed at younger people, but you're not like watching Bear like dash his head against the rocks and his limp body fall into a ravine. He'll often like get out of a situation even if you make a poor decision and let you try again and be like, "Oh, why did you do that, idiot?" Or
maybe the sequel though will be a little more hardcore.
Yeah, I would see this. On one hand, it was like, wow, I really want a more hardcore version of this kind of like mixed like reality TV plus fictional scenarios. That's like a really interesting thing. But on the other hand, I just love how dumb it is as a result of like having to be okay for younger people. There's so many contrived solutions to surviving in the wilderness. Like you need to get through this jungle that is clearly being prowled by a jaguar, and you can either roll in mud to mask the scent, which sounds smart, or dress up as a giant in a giant bush suit, which is the most visible thing you could possibly do. Cats have great vision. If you ever like, you're gonna get spotted, and so watching him like, because when you choose something, he has to like act like he has to go with it, and he has to act like, yeah, we'll do this, and you can see like his lips tighten a little bit and his eyes sort of squint a bit more when you pick the wrong choice, and he's like trying really hard to put on a show for you, even though he looks like a total dipshit. So yeah, that's You versus Wild, and it's just like, I'll link to my article, but it's a hoot. It's a hoot.
Another time when I was a kid, my mum sent me on this outdoor pursuits trip with my sister, but she didn't have to do this because she was younger. And these two ex-army guys took us kids out into the woods and did this like survival training on us. And it was their last week there, the army guys. So they decided to go like fucking hog wild on these kids. They were doing stuff like they would roll us in puddles, like muddy puddles, to get us like that, like covered in mud to be like camouflaged. And if a kid didn't want to do it, they would like literally put a boot on his head and push his head under the water.
What the
we
fuck?
Were like, yeah, it was really like, I mean, I'm old, so this was like back in the olden days. It was pretty sketchy. Like we were having to cross this river, like on a log, and like one kid fell off into the river. When he came out, he was wearing like a sou'wester. He'd caught a fish in his pocket, like that. Like he had just a fish in his pocket. It was fucking messed up.
Your childhood, man.
Health and safety like wasn't a thing back then.
Oh my
god.
Holy shit. Well,
but Hearthstone.
Yeah, let's let's do Star Wars real quick. I got Hearthstone for the middle of the show.
Very good for you.
For the lull. But let's talk about this the Star Wars reveal. Respawn's single player Star Wars game. Star Wars Jedi: Fallen Order.
Fallen
Order. Wes, what is this? What is this thing? What the hell are we?
So yeah, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning. This game's been in development for I think 4 years now, or maybe even longer.
Quite a while. I was at Respawn for like an early Titanfall 2 preview, and they had a whole wing of their studio just like locked off for it. So
yeah, so it's been in the works for a long time. We haven't really known much of anything about it until I guess last year at E3. They kind of was that when they revealed the name? I can't even remember. Maybe it was.
It was when they cut really awkwardly to like Vince Zampella in the crowd. I'm like, Vince, tell us about your game. And he's like, it's called Star Wars Fallen Order. I'm like, all right, good reveal.
Yeah, and that's about all we've known. We knew it was going to be a single player game. But kind of figured it was going to be like a lightsaber kind of combat focused game. And honestly, we still don't know a lot more than that, because the big reveal at Star Wars Celebration this weekend was all cinematics. So we still haven't seen anything gameplay from this game. We haven't really seen what it's going to play like, but they did kind of give a brief synopsis saying it's a lightsaber focused combat game. It's going to be, sort of easy to learn, but hard to master, have enough depth there. You're going to be able to customize your lightsaber to some degree. The main character is kind of on the run after the end of Star Wars Episode 3, where all the Jedi or most of the Jedi get killed by the kind of the rise of the Empire. And he is now in hiding and trying to, I think, kind of either restart the Jedi Order or...
Is he one of the younglings, kind of semi-grown up?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was... they haven't given like a full background, so I'm not sure if he was supposed to be a youngling or if he was just a young Jedi at the time. I don't. Yeah, they haven't said exactly how many years have passed. My guess is he was probably like a teenager or something.
Yeah.
Around the time of that movie.
I
So,
mean,
yeah,
we do know from the video that there's going to be like wall running, right? This seems because that's like quite heavily.
It appears
unless,
like that if it's
Yeah.
telegraphing.
I don't think you put wall running in there as the studio who did wall running notably in its previous FPS by accident.
That's fair, yeah. And
Otherwise,
we
it
see
feels
some
like
use
quite
of
the
force
veins.
powers. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pulling some stuff with his hand.
But the whole trailer has this very kind of dark, like anti-Jedi kind of vibe running through it, where he's saying, oh, don't stand out, don't use your powers, you have to stay hidden so that they can't discover you. And obviously the theme of the game is going to be him reversing that decision, right? And being standing triumphant and saying, no, I am a Jedi, I need to help people. And yeah, it feels fairly telegraphed to me.
Here's a question for you, Wes, as resident Star Wars expert. Are the midi-chlorians, is that still canon?
I don't fucking know.
Of course it is.
I don't think so.
What?
I don't know.
I feel like it was never referenced ever again, but it was such a heavily explained bit that unless like Liam Neeson was on this huge wind up, his character of like, I can make these fucking idiots believe anything.
I think it's canon in the sense that it's in the movie and therefore it has to be, but in the way that they are never going to reference it again. Like they're never going to use that explanation. No one's going to ever say midi-chlorians in another Star Wars movie ever.
Basically, the Jedi have all got like interstellar HPV.
It could just they could retroactively write it off as bunk science, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah, my guess is they will try to pretend that never happened for the rest of Star Wars. But who knows? Maybe they'll joke about it or something.
What how do we feel about this trailer? I guess like what's our Tim? You're notoriously don't give a shit about Star Wars, if I recall correctly.
It's not that I don't care about it. Well, I don't care about it. I mean, it's more like I like everyone. I enjoyed the original trilogy when I was a young man. I like very much so. Like I had the toys like everyone else, and I guess I just think the other films were basically bad, and like any attempt to pretend otherwise is futile.
Okay, so
even the more recent ones, I kind of go watch them while they're on. I enjoy them, and then when I leave, it's exactly like when I've eaten like a McDonald's. I feel nothing. I just feel nothing. Like I can't remember it. I can't tell you what. Like all of them, like Solo, Rogue One, the spin-offy ones. Okay. Like I couldn't write down on a beer mat what happened in them, and maybe that's like my failing memory. But like they just leave no impression. Yeah, no way.
So I'm guessing
even stuff like
there's some good spaceship scenes.
There's some good space fights.
Well, I like the universe still. So like, and
okay.
I think I've said before, like Respawn would have been my pick. If ever I could have had a dream pick to make like a Warhammer 40,000 game. So the thought of them doing pure sci-fi, working on a cool license, I'm definitely here for it. I like the fact it's single player and just a campaign that I can play through and don't have to, invest 1,000 hours grinding for a gun that turns out to be bad. I'm definitely here for it because they're just, I think, like a developer who really deliver on the feel of combat. So yeah, I think it's cool. Kind of rough on poor old Amy Hennig because they said like EA said we're not into single player Star Wars things anymore. She just must have been looking at the internet going, what the fuck?
I'd be so
yeah, that's one of the things we wanted to talk about a little bit was they came out and made this statement about this game, which is great for this game, them saying it's a single player game, no bullshit, but just a year and a half ago or whatever, they were saying like there isn't a market for this kind of game anymore. Therefore, we're not making it because, FIFA makes us all this loot box money. What kind of loot boxes are you going to have in your game? None? Okay, well, let's cancel that one. And I think that was more of the probably more of the business excuse at the time for them to kind of sweep under the rug like, okay, this project's a mess. It's having these issues, but maybe those issues were also largely caused by direction from up above that it needed to have certain features and needed to do this, and then Lucasfilm saying no, you can't do such and such, and license game problems, But this one so far seems like it has managed to avoid falling into that trap. It looks like they have a game anyway that
When
we'll
do
be
you
able
think
to
we'll
play
see?
this year.
Would you guess E3?
I think
Gotta
E3.
be, right?
Yeah, I think that's why they didn't show gameplay in this initial reveal, because they want to blow it out at E3, which kind of disappointing to me. I would have liked to just see a little bit of what this game actually is going to play like, but guess we'll get that pretty soon. Cool. But if it has even like the spirit of the old, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Knight games,
Dark Forces.
Dark Forces, like even though it's not going to be a first person shooter, if it still has that kind of that feel, I will be
Did
happy.
They confirm it's already third person then, or is it first person?
I believe they confirmed third person.
Yeah, and my hope is, I think there's a quote out there, and I'm paraphrasing it, obviously, saying the combat is much more deliberate. Like, you're gonna have to really size up your opponents, that's cool to me, because I mean, we wrote an article about, I think Tom Senior wrote an article about how, like, Sekiro's combat system makes sense for lightsabers. They are these crazy, unwieldy, dangerous things that if they touch you, you die, essentially, or the thing it touches comes off. So it'd be really cool to see that captured, like the consequence of that thing even coming near you, that really violent beam of light in your hip.
I don't see how you can accurate that, because Wes and I were talking about this before a meeting the other day and saying, like, if you had like an actual lightsaber fight where the lightsaber wielder was like just plowing through waves of enemies, there'd just be this windmill of like arms and legs flying off with kind of just geysers of blood. It might look amazing,
probably,
but it would look like a Takashi Miike film.
Well, and
no,
I think
it cauterizes the wound, Tim. There's no blood. That's the whole gimmick, is it's instantly just like severe burn.
So, I mean, I'm no doctor, but I'm saying I think there'd still be some blood.
Might still be.
It's. I mean, like, that's my hope, at least compared to like the last couple of games. Was Force Unleashed the last like third person Star Wars action game we had?
It's the last one in this kind of vein anyway. I don't remember if there's been anything since then.
And that one was really about like the extreme power fantasy. I just don't want to be like a godly Jedi. I want to be a scrappy, like, barely know what I'm doing Jedi. That sounds fun. But yeah, so another thing that's sort of standing out immediately hit me when the trailer was shown off, was that protagonist is like, he could be anybody. It's probably like, Wes, you wrote a big piece on this, like, of all of these creatures and aliens and places and interesting people they could have chosen for the face of this, like, second coming of Star Wars single player story based games. They chose just a guy who could be just the most unrecognizable character ever.
Yeah, I think his character design is really bland, and it's not even just that he's like a white guy character, but that they went for the hood to make him look kind of cool. They went for this, like, brown hair, but then he kind of looks like he's got, like, when he's got the hood on, he kind of just looks like a skinhead. And then the voiceover is very, like, I don't know how good an actor this guy is. He's probably fine. He's been on Gotham. He's been on a couple other TV shows. I'm sure he's going to do a fine job in the game, but the writing of the voiceover also, I think, is really, it's just like really predictable, I think, and is not interesting, and his delivery of it doesn't elevate it to some great art. So I was kind of just bored listening to this character and looking at him. And there's like hundreds of weird and cool alien species that they've come up with in Star Wars. Maybe just go off the beaten path and use one of them.
You suggested a number, Wes. What would have been your number one pick
for an alien?
Mm-hmm.
I listed out about a dozen that were ones that I felt like, yeah, these would actually work. Like, these would be cool. Let me look back through and see which one would be my favorite.
Gamorrean guard, at least in the top 5, I would assume.
I did link one that's I would not go for. Actually, I just put it in there as a joke, called Ossens, who look like really fat, like dogs with overbites,
Like
wearing
their underwear.
loincloths kind of
Wow.
thing.
Way to fat and dog shame in one comment with Jesus.
I would say that would not have been the most. You couldn't really put that on the box art, That wouldn't.
Why aren't there more games in which you play aliens? It's quite it's an interesting consideration.
I know, right?
I mean, when you got to play like the Covenant in Halo, that was cool.
I would say either a Deveronian or a Zabrak. These are like two of the ones I put in the.
Dude, you're just making these up now.
I mean, there's a musical form called Jizz in Star Wars. Tim. I don't need to make them up. I don't need to make this up myself. It's all out there.
It's jazz, but it's sexier.
Yeah, there you go. But the Zabrak are like Darth Maul from Phantom Menace.
Shit, that would have been cool.
His race.
Mum's gone out. He's gone crazy in the makeup cabinet.
Yeah, there you go. I think he was heavily tattooed. They don't all look quite like that, but they have the horns and stuff. So
were they originally just black or red?
This piece of concept art is someone who has sort of tan skin, so I couldn't tell you if they all have the same skin color or what. But
deep lore now.
I think there's a character. There is a character like this in KOTOR 2, Knights of the Old Republic 2 of this race. So that would have been a fine race to do a protagonist, and there's many other possibilities, but they went with the most boring choice they could, which some people are already trying to justify by saying well, he's trying not to stand out, so it makes sense that he would look like that. It's okay, sure.
Yeah, I'm not into it, but no, that doesn't mean. Again, this is criticism, folks. This is we're not going to boycott the game because of it. It's just disappointing. It's weird. It's just it really stood out. Anything else about Star Wars? I mean, we're still waiting on gameplay, which we'll probably see at E3. Did we talk about the no loot boxes statement that sort of EA put out and sort of
just a bit, yeah.
Yeah. No loot boxes was sort of their marketing thrust or their surrounding the announcement, which is just kind of hypocritical considering the Battlefront 2.
I liked it. I read someone saying, and I can't remember who it was now, so I apologize for not crediting, but someone saying it's not an EA game is a hell of a way to pitch an EA game.
That's pretty darn good. But yeah, it's coming out. Is it November 15th or
November of this year? Yeah.
Yeah, shit. That's exciting. It's cool. 20 grind teen will continue in a couple months. In the meantime,
thank God.
In the meantime, we got I don't know. Are there other games? We'll see.
There's Hearthstone.
Hearthstone is a game that's still happening.
Nice seg.
What you got for us, card guy?
I've been playing Hearthstone. The Rise of Shadows expansion came out last Tuesday, and it's the first big expansion of the year. What does that mean, James?
I don't know.
It means card rotation time. Okay. So at the same time, 3 of the older sets, I think it was Journey to Ungoro, Knights of the Frozen Throne, and Kobolds and Catacombs. Oh my God, that's a miracle. I worked them all out. They all left the standard format at the same time. So you lose 3 card sets effectively from standard play, which sounds bad, but actually it has a really positive effect on switching up the kind of archetypes that people play. The new set is I think it's landed really well, is the first thing I would say. The game beforehand, as it always does, usually towards the tail end of an expansion, had got pretty stale, and it was really dominated by these hero cards. And hero cards are ones which transform your hero and give them a new hero power. And they'd released one for every class with the Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion a couple of years back, and they would do stuff. They would essentially give you, in different forms, infinite value. The Hunter one meant that each turn you could draw 2 beast cards, combine them, and play that card. So in a long game, you would infinitely create these super powerful RNG beasts. So there's almost no deck can live with that pressure. And each class, to varying degrees of power, had one of these cards. So a lot of games would kind of devolve to who drew theirs first, and everyone kind of build around them and blah blah blah. Now, the metagame now, as it's kind of shaken out, has meant that without those cards, there is a big caveat to that I'll come to in a second. Without those cards, it's much more kind of value driven. The game's kind of grindy and more mid-rangey, and it's kind of about who can get on board first and then kind of making clever trades and blah blah blah, rather than going just for like this one big blowout. You find it, you win. The caveat is that there were some other hero cards introduced later on during Hearthstone's life, which haven't rotated out. So Warrior has one that's a version of Dr. Boom, who can make like robots that have rush, which means they can do shit immediately when they hit the board. Super powerful. The Shaman has a card where whenever you play a creature, you draw just a random spell. So again, it's like the theme of infinite value. And Hunter has a really cool one where it replays every spell you've cast that game, which, as you can imagine,
like all at once
in one go. Yeah,
Jesus.
it's quite good. so you build so that you can't control what they're targeted, but then you include a lot of spells, which kind of, it doesn't matter what they target, they're always going to be good. So there's 3 classes which have still those hero cards, and the metagame is definitely kind of, especially the Warrior one, like Warrior is super dominant, and Warrior as a class is like, I don't want to say it's boring, because some people really like those drawn out control games that Warrior specializes in, because what Warrior does is like stacks a ton of armor, removes all your stuff, and just draws the game out until you run out of threats, basically. So there's a lot of kind of Warrior mirror games. Rogue's really good after the expansion as well. Rogue's the class I've been playing most because it got number one, it's the only class I don't have golden, which means I don't have 500 wins on it, so I'm kind of trying to grind that out. Rogue got the card that synergizes best with the new lackeys. Lackeys are these, they're generated by other cards, and there's like, at the moment, 5 of them, but there's going to be more as the year goes on. They're like all 1/1 creatures with a really powerful effect, and Rogue does really well with having super cheap things that can kind of combo off each other. And it has a card called Heist Baron Togwaggle, which is this like super fat King Kobold. Look at Wes literally yawning in my Hearthstone a bit. Don't think I didn't notice that, Fen.
That is a great name for a card. Togwaggle.
Yeah, so what Togwaggle does is, if you've got one of these lackeys in play when you play him, Togwaggle gets to choose from one of 4 magnificent treasures, and the treasures do shit like draw a card and fill your hand with copies of it, or draw 3 cards and they all cost 0, or summon two copies of a random legendary that you get to pick from one of 3. So like it does insane things. So I crafted that in golden on day 1, and Rogue's been a very kind of fast rogue, has been really, really popular, although again it's bad against Warrior. The thing that kind of concerns me a little bit is I don't play Hearthstone at a super high standard. Like I kind of bounce around like ranks 1 to 5. But for the really competitive players, they've done something this year, or they're about to do something, which is switch the esports format to be, it used to be best of 5s with, you would bring multiple decks, multiple classes. Now you bring one class. The new format is called Specialist, and you bring one deck and then 2 versions of that deck with slight changes. Like you can change up to 5 cards. So it's kind of like sideboarding in Magic the Gathering, where you can kind of make tech choices to try and counter what the other person's doing. Now, this won't be used in the World Championships, which is happening not this weekend, but the weekend after. We're sending one of our writers to it, actually, so we'll have some coverage. But it will be used thereafter. And the worry is that with some classes really dominant, everyone's potentially going to bring like Warrior or maybe one of a couple other classes. And then you're going to be watching like the same mirror matches go on. I mean, a Warrior mirror can take 40 minutes, one game, and you're playing a best of 5. Okay. Yeah, like so they're already holding like pre-tournaments, community tournaments, open cups, that's what they're called. They're already holding open cups for people to qualify for, the next round of big championships. And people are saying they'll start the tournament at like 4 in the afternoon, and it'll only be getting to like the quarterfinals at like 2 a.m. So like if you've got like a job or like have school, like good luck competing, because, and also,
do you know why they've changed to this format?
I think there was a sense that the old format had got a bit boring and had kind of been figured out, and they wanted to do something that shook it up. And I think they wanted to do something where they could, more of the events would happen online rather than at LANs. It's all part of the kind of the general changes that were happening at Blizzard. They made changes across esports, but I don't want to say that it's bust before it's even happened yet, because to be fair, they have not been running beyond like I think one show tournament. We haven't seen much of this yet, but I've looked at like the lineups for some of the early tournaments, and they were like very, very skewed. I mean, the counterpoint is that if you're really smart then and you find a deck that's going to just destroy warrior, maybe you bring that and clean up, and then maybe someone else is even smarter and counter picks against what you're doing. So the hope is perhaps that, like, on a long enough timeline, lots of those kind of strategies emerge. And right now we're just in a phase where everyone's bringing the best thing, but I'm a little nervous about it.
It's interesting because obviously totally different types of games, but like some of my favorite moments from fighting game tournaments like Evo are where one player just gets destroyed with their character they're playing, who's like a top tier pick, and they, instead of just going back in the match, they change it up and choose a different character that maybe they're not even as good with, but just throwing off the opponent creates this really exciting moment, and the whole crowd is going, oh shit, they went off their main, they went for this unexpected pick. And like, I love those moments. So I don't know if that really applies to Hearthstone, but it's interesting that they're kind of limiting the variety that you're going to see out of these.
I wonder if maybe like enabling people to change more cards rather than just the 5 would help, because then they could bring things that were like more radically different flavored. The other, I'll just say one more thing that's amused me so far is that the pros are getting annoyed about is there's also this card they've printed, which some are saying it's like the worst card that's ever been printed for the competitive scene. They do tend to be a bit hysterical, but it's a card called Archivist Elysiana. And with a lot of these games going super long, what this card does is it takes the cards that are left in your deck, throws them out, and then lets you pick 5 new cards, which it puts 2 copies of each into your deck, so you get 10 cards, right? But they're chosen completely at random. So what people are doing is they get right to the end of the game, they've used up all their cards, they're about to go into fatigue where you start taking damage because you're drawing from an empty deck. Then they play this Elysiana chick, refill their deck, and potentially pick things that are suited to closing out that game. Now, where it gets really ugly is there's a number of cards which can bounce Elysiana back into your hand or back into your deck, so you can do it more than once. So the reason pros are mad about it is both players can do this. They'll play perfectly up until the end of the game when no one's got any cards left, and then it kind of comes down to just who gets the best picks off Elysiana. So they feel like that's not necessarily either a good playing experience or a good viewing experience. Although I have to say, I love it when she gets played because I think it's funny. But that's something that is potentially contributing to, like, some games have been going to the turn limit. The turn limit is like 45 turns or something like that. Ugh. Yeah, and then Blizzard has a number of like criteria for deciding who wins, like who's at the lower life total. If you're both at the lower life total, who's taken more damage over I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff, but that doesn't make for like exciting viewing necessarily. But we'll see. I don't want to rule out. What I will say is like Luke, who's writing a piece for us for tomorrow about the kind of the best decks of the expansion so far. I've been having a ton of fun, and like Luke and I have both been playing a ton of different decks. I think like there's some goofy stuff that's better than expected. There's like a bomb hunter deck, uses a lot of mechs. It's really fun. I've been playing like a paladin deck, which uses secrets. Those clearly aren't the meta decks, but they are like good enough to be played. And it's tricky. Like whenever you're in this phase, there's this honeymoon period where you just go, "Oh, Hearthstone's so fun! I'm seeing something new every day." And then like 2 months from now, you'll be going, "Holy shit! If I ever see another bomb in my deck again." Warrior has these cards which shuffle bombs into your deck, which blow up. Which of course, because they're like super trolley, like everyone was doing on day one. There's my favorite card in the expansion. I said I'd stop talking and I haven't. My favorite card in the expansion is this little dude, 3/3 warrior, who puts bombs in the other person's deck. And when he arrives on the board, he's a robot. He goes, "Did somebody order a bomb?" And you're like, "Dude, nobody orders bombs. Why would anyone order a bomb?" But he makes me laugh every time until the bomb blows up. I stop laughing.
Well, that's pretty. It's pretty fascinating. All of that was really interesting.
You're a liar, James. But
I got distracted by some outdoor business. It was making loud noises and covering up your interesting insight. But I like to end these card segments with just a summary of where the game is at and how you feel about it personally.
The game is in a good spot, I think. And in a couple of weeks' time. So a month from launch, so probably 3 weeks from now, the single player will launch as well, and this is it's paid for this time,
Okay.
but not hugely expensive, and you get a bunch of card packs if you do pay for it. And it's based on a wing structure, so it'll kind of roll out over a number of weeks, and it's the most comprehensive single player I think they've ever done. There's shades of Slay the Spire in there in terms of you being able to swap stuff in and out of your deck.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and it's like each class will have like multiple different hero powers you can select from, multiple kind of seed decks you can use. I played it down at Blizzard for like a whole day and really enjoyed it. And I say that as someone who like did not get on at all with the Shrines mode they did last time or the puzzle mode they did that before that. I think this is easily the best incarnation of single player. So even if you get bored of the meta, I know you love the meta, James, but even if you get bored of it, I think the single player is going to be really well received.
I mean, I love the single player modes. I always dive in and play them for a couple hours each. That's my that's my way to play, and it's.
I
nice.
think you'll have you'd have to drop a little bit of money on it this time, but I think you'd have a bunch of fun. Yeah, it's really nice.
Right on. Let's move on to our next topic. One that it also involves angry pros. You'll be happy to hear, and that's the Fortnite World Cup qualifiers. They are kicking off now. They kicked off this last weekend. If you don't know, the Fortnite World Cup is Epic's first massive, like, it is their top tier. It's their Super Bowl of Fortnite. It is $100 million prize pool for all of the competitions leading up to and ending in the final World Cup. And
that's a big prize pool.
It's huge. It's fucking huge. It's also pretty wild because Fortnite is a game. You know, when you have these big esports events, you're typically thinking of CS:GO and these games that are much more compact and built around this idea of balance, and that have much more static metas, or at least like more comprehensible metas. But Fortnite is still doing the thing where they update every 2 weeks, and that version of Fortnite is largely the version of Fortnite, warts and all, that pros are playing with. And so leading up to the Fortnite World Cup, pros have sort of been vocal about how the game is in maybe the worst spot it's ever been. It's in the worst shape it's ever been, at least in terms of competitive play. And there's a couple symptoms at the center of this, and I'll put up some GIFs and videos for everyone watching at home. One of them is the Baller. Do you guys know what the Baller is? Have you heard of this vehicle? No? Okay.
Not a cool guy.
It's literally a hamster ball, like a giant. Well, okay, you know Jurassic World,
like Boy in the Bubble kind of deal.
In Jurassic World, there's those spherical balls they drive around in, and you can get up next to the dinos. It's literally that with a grappling hook attached. So you're rolling around in this glass sphere that with a grappling hook, and you can boost and bounce all around. You cannot shoot out of it, and you cannot be shot while you're driving it. You can't shoot through the glass. It has 200 HP, which was nerfed from 300. So it effectively works like 200 extra HP and super mobility. And in those last like 3 to 4 circles of competitive Fortnite, there are usually anywhere between like 20 to 40 players left alive. Yeah, it's the state of competitive Fortnite is already pretty rough because everyone plays super conservatively. So in those last final moving circles, they stand a chance. You know, you want the goal by that point is to have like one mobility item, whether it's like a vehicle like the Baller or a Rift or whatever, like a glider redeploy, whatever it might be, so you can build up or quickly adjust to where the circle is moving to or get out of a sticky situation. You also want all the resources you can have because turtling is a huge, it's like the tactic in competitive Fortnite where you basically build snaking tunnels. You never really expose yourself all around you as you move. And the result is
is that a good watch, is it?
If you know what's going on, it can be, but and I'll put I'll just, for the viewers at home, I'll show an example of what it looks like, because it looks like a nightmare. It's just these big tall towers, and then you have, like, if you're watching through the spectator, you can see the silhouettes of every player, and there's something like 40 players moving around, interacting with each other. Casting that kind of thing is a nightmare because at any given point there are like 6 encounters happening within that mess of 1x1s, and it's hard to kind of know where you are at a glance, because usually all players are like boxed in by their own buildings, or editing quickly, or moving around. And disfiguring the terrain. It's not a great watch if you don't know what's going on. Even if you do know what's going on, it's sort of not in the spirit of the game, in my opinion. Battle Royale. It's just sort of a clusterfuck that is largely dictated, or at least swayed by luck, because you never know which direction the next circle is going to move in. You don't know if you're going to have a good position to be able to rotate. Anyway, and you don't know if you're going to be able, the stuff you picked up on the way you looted is going to be what fits your situation or is helpful in that moment. So a lot of it is still really sort of luck based, and it's exacerbated by this clusterfuck at the end. Even worse, these ballers, when they come in, you get these situations where they're basically like the safest, a very safe way to play the last few circles if you see other ballers out there. So because you get 200 extra HP, you can swing around. You got easy mobility, so you can get to the next circle, and you don't have to use any resources. You don't have to spend any resources. So it's a good like first push into those final circles, because it essentially delays spending those resources, spending ammo, spending health, spending other mobility items. It's a buffer. And so you're getting these situations where these final circles are just filled with like 8 or more balls just bouncing around aimlessly as they wait for the circle to close, and everyone is sort of forced to do something, either get out of the ball or make some kind of wacky play. They're not too easy to counter. And I'm going to put up another GIF here for our viewers that shows one of these final circles, which is just all these like balls ping-ponging around, while some people who don't have one are just frantically building, trying not to get knocked out of the circle as they move around.
Is there a kind of a common community sentiment for what needs to be done? What's the solution?
The solution overall is just get rid of the ballers, because as we just get rid of them. Epic has done things like I said, nerf the health. They claimed they were going to allow players to shoot through the glass, which they then they stepped back from and said, nah, it's not cool. It's not fun that way. And the baller is like it's a perfectly fine vehicle in public matches, but it's so easy to see. I mean, you can watch these games on the weekend. Not all of them end in like these clusterfucks of ballers, but a lot of them did. And on top of what is already a problematic endgame with all this turtling and the other random elements that play into that, it's just not. I mean, it can produce interesting moments, but I don't think, and a lot of the pros, I wrote this article, are just pissed off and think it's just like a mess. If the Fortnite World Cup and these qualifiers are supposed to show who is the best Battle Royale player, the one who is most capable of adjusting to their situation on the fly and sort of thinking about positioning and thinking about team communication, if it's a squad play or duo play, who has great aim, who has all of the skills to like survive and in this sandbox, it's kind of compromised by this vehicle that it just kind of muddies what skill they're testing here and what skill they're testing for $100 million in total. It's really bizarre to have it in the game right now still, and might be especially bizarre if they're not removed before the end of qualifiers, or if they are removed before the end of qualifiers, because then, you know, who really deserves to get where they're at, reviewing some of this footage? Who really is the best? It's possible to totally get by in these matches and survive until the end just by playing passively or getting in a ball and just like rotating, you know, in lucky ways. It's just, it's hard to grind it all down to, or skill down to a fine point, and you sort of never can with battle royale. It's like sort of the point is it's going to be muddy, but
It's almost as if this wasn't intended to be an esport.
and that's sort of the thing I'm coming around to is like Fortnite is a lot of fun to watch, but I have the most fun when competitive Fortnite, excuse me, when it's sort of assumed that it's going to be a clusterfuck, and that like when Epic leans into sort of the game show, like surreal game show qualities it has, throwing items in and out and like watching players adjust to that stuff. If their careers aren't on the line, is more interesting.
So they really should take like an American Gladiator style approach to competitive Fortnite, huh? Or like
that
random like kids game show where it's just like, and this round, like you're gonna have your hands tied behind your back and you have to hop on one foot, and whoever is best at doing that will win $1 million.
And they've honestly done some of that in the skirmishes leading up to the World Cup over the last year. They've had like creative competitions, creative mode competitions. They've done things like races or weird one of my favorite formats is just like kill counts. So like a duo team or a squad team will go into a public lobby and then try and get the highest kill count total. They're not competing against other players in the same lobby. They're just trying to like tactically and strategically try and eliminate as many players as they can in this public lobby. And that's like fun because it's easier to keep track of the action. It's a bit more straightforward and it leans into the whole, it leans into the strengths of the sandbox. I think like Destiny, Fortnite would actually, well, excuse me, not exactly like Destiny, but Epic is like not ready to do this, but I think they really need to consider, if they want Fortnite to be an esport, a legitimate esport, to balance competitive modes separately and create new rule sets that are more balanced and a bit more maybe bland compared to the public modes. Like, it's fun to see these ideas introduced at such a rapid pace, but inevitably they're not going to all make sense with how competitive players play and sort of
the argument against
into it. Yeah,
unfortunately, the argument against doing that, because the same conversation, you're right, when Destiny PvP was popular and not the graveyard it is now, was always that the developers tend to not want that to happen, because one of the fundamental functions for them is that esports sort of serves as a Trojan horse for like getting new people into the game, and also people want to watch it and it be reflective of what their own experience is. So when you suddenly start removing like the wackier weapons or abilities, then like you say, it becomes a slightly more benign but perhaps more skillful version of the thing, but it's not the same thing. I've always sort of thought that was bullshit, and like I don't know, like it feels my kind of view on the battle royale stuff is like the thing is so popular that people would watch it anyway. But I may be well wide of the mark there.
Yeah, it's tough.
Like I've always thought it would become an esport just because of the sheer volume of people who are interested in it. Like it would kind of find a way. But then when you describe like people building like zigzag tunnels, that does sound fucking tedious.
Yeah,
interest wanes at some point. Yeah,
and Epic has like played around with placing more score, like weight on the score you get per elimination, or like certain types of bonuses or in-game types over the last year. But right now for the World Cup, they're not really leaning much into eliminations as they should with the current state of the end game, which is just a kind of a mess. And yeah, I mean, a lot of skillful players can survive that and show that they are capable of handling a shrinking ring of balls coming their way. But that's rare. That's rare. It would be nice at least to have like a 2-week buffer or something for these items to be in public play for a while, so you can test them out and pros can dink around with them and see if they make sense, or produce strategies, counter strategies, so on. But I don't know. It seems like sort of like an unsolvable problem for what Fortnite is, if it's trying to go the traditional esports route. And it's going to be, I think the moral of the story is that no one knows what's going on, and that the Fortnite World Cup is almost assuredly going to be interesting to watch, either because all of this will coalesce, like they'll make some changes that make the baller fit perfectly, and it'll all make sense before the World Cup comes around, or it's just going to be a total total mess and disaster, and pros are gonna leave the game, if not temporarily, forever. Like a lot of them have said, they're gonna try different games after the fact, because they're so upset with these changes. But again, Fortnite changes so rapidly and often that I think I've seen pros get upset, or close to as upset as they are now, and come back around. It's sort of just the nature of how quickly they update the game. I just do think that there's got to be some sort of change they make in how they roll out these updates to competitive players if they're going to be hosting $100 million tournaments regularly.
Kevin the Cube will save us. I have faith.
I hope so. I hope Kevin comes back.
He'll be back.
It's funny. They have a history of doing these in-game events while some of their biggest tournaments are going on, and I go over this in the article I wrote, but it's just wild. It's just wild. Like when I saw it live, I went to the summer skirmish at PAX West last year, and they like deployed an anti-gravity field that Kevin the Cube activated while like the finals were happening, and it bugged out, and everyone got caught in this like loop of falling up and down during like $1 million tournament.
But that goes back to what I was
it.
saying. It's like, if you're the audience, like, fucking cool. Like,
Yeah.
that's funny.
It was fun. It was awesome.
I know that with Hearthstone's balance patches, they've tried in the past to be very careful about when they roll out like nerfs and stuff.
Yeah.
But even with Worlds coming up, like I said, in a week's time from now, or a week and a half's time from now, the players will have only had like 2 weeks essentially with the new cards. And to me, that's great, because then that sorts out, like, you know, the wheat from the chaff in terms of who's a really creative deck builder and who's able to read the kind of meta and counter it really well. So I don't know. I think it's going to be an eternal conundrum for competitive service games, but the more chaos, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
I think I'm with you. I think I lean towards your side. I just do wish that there was better communication from Epic would maybe solve this. Like, here's why we're doing this. Here's why we have the baller still in. That would be cool. But hey, I don't know. I'm going to watch it either way, and I'm going to laugh and have fun either way. So we'll see how it plays out. Qualifiers are running from now until, I think, early June. So it's going to be interesting to see who makes it and who doesn't. Yeah, that's Fortnite. It's still happening, still massively popular. But let's move on. Let's get this show on the road and move on to our listener questions. If you're in the chat, just tag PC Gamer with any question you have about computer games, and we'll get to you if we can. But we do prioritize questions from our PC Gamer Club Discord. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to club.pcgamer.com to find out more. You'll get an invite to our Discord, and you can ask questions and get them on the show, almost guaranteed, if you join. All right, let's open up with... Not really much of a question.
What you got, James?
Janrin asks, Uplay is giving away AC Unity for free because of the Notre Dame. Is it Notre Dame or Notre Dame? Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Okay. I don't know why. I haven't said it out loud in a long time. Disaster opinions. I mean, that's nice.
When I first saw the story, I just saw the Ubisoft are giving away AC to commemorate, and I was like, dudes, you should maybe throw some French francs down to help with the renovation. But they have. So you know, there was a different story which Andy Kelly on our team was sharing last night, which was he was saying that, well, he wasn't saying, the story was suggesting that the renovation work could be helped by the internal 3D diagrams that the AC art team had done of the church. But when you dug into the story, it seemed like basically internet wishful thinking, which is why we didn't write about it. At least I think we didn't write about it.
It's interesting, though, because AC Unity was sort of, I remember it being the good graphics Assassin's Creed, like their next gen leap or something like that.
Yep.
And it was really buggy on release, but it has since been patched up and is fairly stable. But the detail in the architecture and in that city is pretty astounding. So even if you're not a big Assassin's Creed person, I think it's worth checking out just to like ogle the detail in the architecture of their version of Paris. So
I think like still of any of the games since then in the series, right? That's the one that has the greatest scale, like closest to actual size, level of detail in this one, in one city versus having a larger world, just like
Yeah.
going as super, super granular on that setting. It was kind of a shame that the game itself was kind of the not the favorite of the series. We'll say that.
But
Just say trash, Wes.
I don't think it was trash. I mean, the PC port had the crazy like skin missing bug
God, classic
stuff.
Was that the one
from launch?
It was technically bad, yeah.
Yeah. I think it was the only Assassin's Creed with co-op. Wasn't there co-op in there for a bit?
That was the sequel, the next one that nobody bought, right? The London one.
Yeah,
what was that one called? I don't know.
Syndicate?
Brothers and Sisters. Syndicate. That's
yeah. Cool. Go check it out. It's on Uplay. Just click a button and it's yours. Nick Manley asks, what are each person on the show's predictions and hopes for E3 this year? So that's a loaded question that I haven't even thought about. I'm just realizing. Do you guys have any any sure bets or Hail Marys you're hoping to see? And maybe Tim, you're a little too close to all this, but
I think our show's going to be good.
PC gaming show.
PC show. Been working on that. Evan and I are working on that pretty much constantly at the moment. So some good stuff in the pipeline for that.
Cool.
Elsewhere, I figure Microsoft will probably show Halo Infinity. I'll be curious to see what that looks like, even if probably don't have room in my life for another kind of grindy space game, but still be kind of keen to see what it looks like. Don't know what else.
Yeah.
I would like to see Demon Souls remastered.
Oh, finally, that would be
But
be great.
It will not be coming to PC unless something very strange happens, since Sony funded that game or co-developed it, or I don't quite know what the relationship between From Software and Sony was on that, but
yeah,
probably we'll never see it on PC. But it would be great to see a remastered 60 FPS version of that game playable on PS4.
It's the only one I haven't finished in the Souls series, so I'm hoping to finally play it someday without having a PS3 to dig out a PS3.
More Cyberpunk.
Yeah, of course.
Snap.
Cyberpunk. Maybe we'll see something on this alleged, this rumored Assassin's Creed Vikings game. I bet
maybe there'll be another FIFA. Who can say? I don't want to take a risk on that one. I don't want to push the boat out too far, but fingers crossed, guys.
Watch Dogs 3. We'll see. I'm almost sure we'll see. But
what isn't the rumor that's set in London?
Yeah. That could be cool. I hope they, people have said, they take the guns out. I liked Watch Dogs. I reviewed Watch Dogs 2 for us and gave it a 60, high 60 something, because the story stuff was just really repetitive and bad. But those open worlds are just some of the liveliest, coolest, or at least Watch Dogs 2 is one of the liveliest, coolest open worlds.
What if the whole game is Brexit themed?
Ooh.
I played the Getaway game, and I am not ready to go back to London. For suffering. All right. Brexit the game is quite a strong pitch, though, Wes.
Are you causing it? Are you trying to prevent it? Are you
just survival horror?
The madness
survival
of it.
Horror.
It's 28 days later.
I hope we see something Resident Evil. It would be nice to get the next. Just be told that another one's coming. Just say Resident Evil 8. Put the title on, and I go, okay.
Give them a minute, James. Jeez.
They're gonna make Resi. Haven't we talked about this before? They're gonna make Resi 4 next, aren't they?
Remake Resi 4?
They got to do 3 before that.
No, they'll skip and go to 4.
How do you remake Resi 4 is what I wonder. What is that?
Just put better graphics on.
It's just better graphics. I've bought that game so many times, and I'll buy it again. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. I think we'll see a lot more Borderlands 3 and plenty of stuff that we already know about. But I'm just hoping to get some left field stuff in there too. Yeah, that's our vague answer for you. Let's work through these last ones real quick. Maniac asks, we're already 3.5 months into the new year. What has been your biggest disappointment in gaming, and the biggest surprise? So kind of what are our highs and lows of the year?
I like to call this the Anthem Award.
Yeah.
Anthem's only really a disappointment if you're expecting anything else, which I was not.
It was weird because I went to that. It was surreal because I went to that not early preview. It was a couple weeks before the demo came out, and there was a vibe in the room. Everyone was looking around, confused. Is this good or is this garbage? Like no one could quite tell. It was like the most talky I've ever a demo room has been. Usually like games journalists are kind of like, oh, it's fun, it's cool. I don't know about it. But everyone's just like constant chatter. Did you like this? The combat's good. Anyway, we all know how that played out. But yeah, I think for me, Anthem's a pretty big disappointment based on like that final because it previewed positively for me. But
what was the other criteria? Surprise?
Biggest surprise. I'm just gonna take that as like a high, something that you liked a lot and maybe didn't expect.
Bungie leaving Activision for me.
Yes, yes, that was this year.
I was delighted.
That feels like forever ago.
What was the most surprising Epic exclusive? Like I can't even remember. Point Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds
year, or was that announced end of last year?
I think taking Metro off Steam was big.
Yeah,
like pretty big. Moving a game.
Yeah, that was on there definitely for years or a year. Or something.
There have been several waves of surprises in that category.
It's been a busy ass year. There's been like I can't even like parse the thoughts passing through my brain when I imagine, because it feels like every week something controversial happens, or we find a new reason for people to be mad at Epic, or I don't know. My biggest disappointment is that final boss in Sekiro. Not very much fun, tell you what. But Wes, did you have a big surprise? Anything hit you?
I mean, the Epic thing's my surprise. In terms of disappointments, there haven't been any games that have like really disappointed me this year. I guess that I was expecting something out of. I guess Wargroove didn't grab me as much as I kind of expected to. But I didn't give it a ton of time either, so it's partially on me.
Yeah. Nothing game-wise really stands out to me as a huge surprise. I guess everyone is really into Superland, which is a pretty robust Metroidvania.
I've got another surprise.
Oh, yeah?
I've gone back to playing this week another card game which I used to play, which is Elder Scrolls Legends, and I thought when they switched developer they'd actually killed that game, because it was like a disaster for a while. Like they switched from Direwolf Digital to Sparky Pants, which is not a name that instills faith anyway. And the client initially, because they switched client as well, was an absolute mess. Like it was just the most buggy thing I can really recall seeing in CCGs. But I think they turned it around, and the new set which came out this week, quite why they release within a week of Hearthstone absolutely blows my mind. But it seems like a really good set. They've got a guy who's an ex Magic the Gathering, or is a Magic the Gathering Hall of Famer doing cards, and new set seems really fun. Been playing it quite a bit.
I'm glad that game is able to stay alive.
Yeah, I mean, it's got like fierce competition. The Magic the Gathering game is the one that's really gone on, and I think to become, or is going to become, the one that is a rival to Blizzard, and has really like good viewership and is putting on tournaments now and stuff, and obviously it has huge heritage behind it. But I think like I would really like Elder Scrolls to keep ticking along, because I think it's a cool little community.
Cool. Let's run through a couple in Twitch real quick. Stabby McStab 12. Any of you guys try Anno 1800 City Builder? Any of you guys try it yet?
I haven't, but our review said real good things about it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be pretty darn tootin', as far as I know. I've never played that series at all, so I don't really know what it is, to be quite honest. City Builder is all I know. But Stabby McStab goes on to, what kind of city builder or management games do you like? Any standouts in your history?
I was always a Command and Conquer guy, which is not exactly a city builder, but you know, that vein of strategy, that was always my jam.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten into, really ever like dug down into any particular city builder. SimCity has always been great. Frostpunk I think was amazing, a really cool way to do a narrative driven city builder. Tim, any management games tickle your fancy?
Just had to unmute myself for a second. I haven't played enough of it, but I really like 2 Point Hospital recently. I even played I'm not like a big sim guy, but I did play the maligned EA SimCity and quite enjoyed it. The one that everyone said was shit. But
great music.
It was rocky at launch, admittedly, but I really liked the tilt shift camera thing it did.
Oh yeah.
It looked really nice. Yeah,
it was really cute.
I had a good honeymoon era or period with that game where I didn't know any better. I had not played a city builder in a long time, and it was baseline, very rewarding to make a city appear, and then the backlash happened, and I realized, it maybe was a little shallow, but I enjoyed it for about a week or so.
City Skylines is a hell of a game for sure. If that's the kind of city builder you're looking for.
Yep. All right, a couple here. Murda asks, why are you guys so positive about The Sims 4 when it tortures the core audience so badly? I don't know. Are we? I don't think we have like an editorial stance on The Sims 4. But
I don't think any of the three of us play Sims 4. What I will say is my other half plays every Sims game and expansion, and I think she enjoyed it quite a bit. She's playing whatever the latest expansion is now, and is quite critical when they're bad. But
yeah, I mean, I've heard things about
she's enjoying
it strips back some stuff. Like I can't speak to this specifically, but there's enough there to have fun with for sure. I can't speak to the core audience, but Chris and Joanna, they put out great diaries. There's obviously enough there to put out great diaries with and have at least some kind of madhouse fun. So I don't know. Sorry, guy. Sorry. Let's see here. Oh, Hot Minute Round. We'll close out with Acid Wolf's usual Hot Minute Round. No explanation required. Just pick one. Okay. Pick one of the following from each of the three pairs: Anthem or Mass Effect Andromeda.
Oh.
Mass Effect Andromeda.
Anthem could still be saved. Andromeda can't be. So I'd say
Anthem.
Jeez, I didn't expect that. All right. Lawbreakers or Radical Heights.
Lawbreakers. That's a good fucking video game.
Lawbreakers is great. I'm Lawbreakers.
I haven't played either, but I heard okay things about Lawbreakers, and I've met Cliff a couple of times. He seemed like a really nice guy in person.
All right, last one. Fallout 76 or Star Wars Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2. It was a perfectly fine game. It's fine.
Yeah, Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
Destiny.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Oh man.
Destiny PvP, Tim.
Yeah. I've got quite into PvP when I'm not having a Russian boy help me play it.
Who never sleeps.
They
No,
know
that's Psycho. That's the Australian.
Oh, that's the Australian guy. Whoops. Get him mixed up.
he's got people all around the world
All over
helping
the
out.
world.
Got a network of people using my account, James.
And with that, we're out of time for this week. You can catch the PC Gamer Show
Don't ban me, Bungie.
every Wednesday at 1 p.m. here on twitch.tv/PCGamer. You can find the VOD on youtube.com/PCGamer after the fact, or go to PCGamer.com/tag/podcast if you want the audio version. You can also find us on Spotify, Anchor.fm, Google Play. Still trying to get that iTunes feed moved over, but you can still listen to us on iTunes so long as you plug our new RSS feed into the app or any podcast listening service that you prefer. So until next week, gosh, there's not really any new games coming out, nothing new going on. Is Rage 2 coming up? Rage 2 is happening
Sometime soon.
We're kind of in a lull, so if there's anything you've been playing or recommendations for games you think we should check out, news, whatever, send it my way, and I'll take a peek if I can. But that's gonna do it for now. Until next week, don't forget to what, Wes and Tim?
Does Tim know what to say?
Keep 20 grinding.
Okay. It's game on. Game on. Thank you.
Game on.
We're saying game on now?
We're saying game on.
This is the thing James has turned me into, a person who says game on.
We can't not do it. It's for the fans.
Game on.
All right.
Game on.